shadow frequency, where the veil between this world and the next grows thin, and the things that whisper in the dark are given voice. From the cryptic candlelit studios, deep in the Indiana forests, your host, Matt Wilson, and his spectral producer, Juniper Ravenwood, unearth the forbidden, the forgotten, and the fearsome. So, still your heart, dim the light, and listen closely. For once you tune into the shadow frequency, you may never tune out.
All right, Matt, let's open up the file cabinet. All right, what we got here? First thing out tonight, a Little League trophy.
Okay.
Yeah, for a team that never existed.
That feels like the kind of record-keeping problem that bends space-time.
Okay, let's look around here. Is that sticky? Okay, now I've got a wedding invitation. No bride, no groom, just a date.
That is deeply unsettling.
Especially because the date hasn't happened yet. Let's see what else we got. Oh, here it is, tonight's case file.
Well, let's open it up, June.
Episode 307, John Titor, the time traveler who logged on.
A man on the internet, a machine from the future, and a story that turned online message boards into a time travel mystery that still won't die. I'm Matt Wilson.
And I'm Juniper Ravenwood.
And this is episode 307, John Titor, the time traveler who logged on.
You are tuned to the shadow frequency, where every whisper tells a story from beyond the veil. Hosted by Matt Wilson, produced by Juniper Ravenwood, with Chris Beach. The darkness continues.
Tonight, we're revisiting a case we touched on about a year ago when we were just getting this strange little machine of a show rolling. But this time, we wanted to come back to it with fresher eyes, a fuller file, and a little more dust shaken loose from the corners. Because this one lives in a very particular kind of darkness. Not an old house, not a graveyard, not a forest road at midnight. A glowing monitor in a dark room. A message board refreshing. A username appearing out of nowhere. And then a man claiming he wasn't just posting from somewhere else, but somewhen else. Back at the turn of the millennium, when the internet still felt half machine and half seance, a poster calling himself John Titor showed up around the Time Travel Institute and the Art Bell Post-to-Post boards, saying he was an American soldier from the year 2036, traveling in a General Electric time machine and here on a mission to recover an IBM 5100 computer from 1975. And that is such a beautifully weird detail, isn't it? Not a crystal skull, not a prophecy carved into stone, a computer, a specific one. A heavy, real 1975 IBM machine that actually existed. That's the sort of thing that gets under your skin because it feels too awkward to be made up casually. IBM's own historical material and surviving manuals confirm the 5100 was a real mid-70s portable system with APL and basic operation at the heart of the machine. So what do you guys think?
I'll say this, Juniper. It's one of those cases that feels very internet, but in the old haunted way. Not the loud modern internet. The creaky one. The dial-up one. The one where a bloke could wander onto a forum, claim he'd driven in from 2036, and for a little while, people genuinely leaned in.
Exactly, Chris. It's digital folklore happening live right in front of people who hadn't yet built up that modern reflex of assuming everything online is nonsense.
Yeah, and that's what makes this case so much fun. He didn't just show up and say, "I'm from the future." Trust me, he brought jargon, diagrams, warnings, military language, and this very specific IBM mission that made the whole thing feel grounded just enough to be dangerous.
And maybe that's the creepiest part. If you want to make a ghost believable, you give it details. If you want to make a legend stick, you give it paperwork.
And tonight, we've got plenty of that.
Then let's crack the file back open, Matt. Take it away.
Thanks, Juniper, for digging into the file cabinet and pulling out a case that still feels warm from an old monitor. This one doesn't smell like mildew or candle wax. It smells like hot plastic, dust, and late-night coffee. It smells like the early internet. And if you were around for that era, you know exactly what I mean. Those years right around 2000 had this strange electric tension to them. Y2K had just come and gone. Everybody was a little jittery about technology, a little too ready to believe that somewhere deep inside a machine there might be a hidden trapdoor. Then into that atmosphere comes this guy, first turning up as Time Travel _0 on the Time Travel Institute boards, then showing up on Art Bell's Post-to-Post forum under the name John Titor, calmly saying he was a time traveler from 2036. On January 27, 2001, one preserved post begins with the line, "Greetings, I am a time traveler from the year 2036, and from there, the file just gets stranger." Now, I've got something in the folder here tonight. I'm pulling out a printout of that opening post. Real preserved text, not a recreation, not fan fiction. A printout of the archived message itself. And that matters because it turns the whole thing from campfire story into artifact. On that page, Titor says he's on his way home after retrieving an IBM 5100 from 1975. He says his machine is a stationary mass temporal displacement unit manufactured by General Electric. Later posts add more flavor to that, including the label C204, micro singularities, gravity distortion, and all the rest of the kind of language that makes you either roll your eyes or scoot a little closer to the screen. And here's where it hooks people. The IBM 5100 wasn't made up. It was real. It was announced in 1975, and it was one of IBM's early portable systems. Surviving IBM documentation shows it running APL, and the machine itself had a basic APL switching setup that made it feel like exactly the sort of oddball device a really informed hoaxer would choose, or exactly the sort of strange old machine a real traveler might come looking for. Either way, it wasn't random. It was specific. It was obscure enough to sound impressive, but real enough to withstand a search. Titor said the reason he needed that machine had to do with 2038. In one preserved reply, he claimed older infrastructure in his future still depended on aging IBM code, and that the 5100 could help translate between old IBM environments and other systems. He even said that he'd been chosen in part because he was related to a key figure in the 5100's development. So now the story isn't just man from the future appears online. Now it's man from the future has a mission, a machine, and a family reason for being the one sent back. That is how myths get their bones. But he didn't say he came straight from 2036 to 2001. According to the preserved post, his mission path was 2036 to 1975 to recover the IBM machine. Then a stop in 2000-2001 for personal reasons before returning home when the right window opened. That stopover is one of the eeriest parts to me because it turns the story intimate. He says he's there with his parents. He says they know who he is. Imagine that for a second. Imagine being in your own house, looking at a grown version of your son who hasn't happened yet, and he's telling you the future is broken. And then there was the future he described. Not shiny towers, not sleek utopia, not silver jumpsuits and peace. His 2036 was hard, local, scarred. He talked about the United States sliding into civil conflict beginning in 2004, describing it like a Waco-type event every month until the whole country was consumed, with the larger war climaxing in 2015. He framed the whole thing like a survivor looking backward, not a prophet looking forward. Less be amazed. More, you have no idea what's coming. That tone is part of why the post lingered. He didn't sound like he wanted applause. He sounded like a man killing time in hostile territory. Then he adds the piece that made the story nearly impossible to pin down, world lines. not one fixed timeline, not a clean Back to the Future paradox. He says you can't really get back to the exact world line you left. He describes time travel as movement between nearby realities with divergence that might start small and grow wider over time. That means your future and his future can rhyme without matching exactly. It's brilliant in a creepy way. It turns every missed detail into static, every failed beat into drift. And in the moment, on those boards, with people asking him questions in real time, that idea must have felt like opening a door and finding another door behind it. So the file in the first half feels less like a prank and more like a visitation, a voice out of a machine. A soldier from 2036 standing in the blue light of a monitor, telling strangers that history wasn't solid, the future wasn't safe, and somewhere in 1975 a computer was waiting to be carried across time. And once you let that idea in even a little bit, it starts echoing.
Yeah, because it's not just a story about time travel, it's a story about the internet becoming haunted.
And a very bureaucratic haunting at that. Nothing says terror quite like a time traveler who needs an old IBM.
No kidding.
In the second half, we get into the predictions, the world line escape hatch, the Florida paperwork, and the point where this thing may have stopped being a mystery and started looking like a managed legend. Juniper, over to you for the break.
So far, we've got an alleged soldier from 2036, a General Electric time machine, a stopover with his own family, and an old IBM computer sitting in the middle of it like some kind of mechanical relic. I'm really curious what all of you are thinking right now, because this is one of those cases that either pulls you all the way in or makes you stare at the whole thing sideways. Chris, what do you make of it?
Thanks, Juniper. I'll be honest, this one feels like somebody slipped a ghost story into a computer manual.
Right.
And I can't help but love that. While you're thinking it over, make sure to like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on, because that really helps us with the algorithms. Follow us on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and all the major podcast directories. Head over to shadowfrequencypodcast.com for every episode, the companion blog, merch, show notes, and links to everywhere we are. You can also support the show by buying us a coffee on the website, and you can reach out there too by email or with a voice message we might play on a future episode. Right then, back over to Juniper.
Time to fire up the spectrocosmic message materializer, flipping the switches now. Let's see what the static coughs up tonight. Ah, there we are. A note has drifted in out of the signal fog. Edges singed, corners cold.
Retrieved from the void.
Let's unfold this little transmission and see what our listener had to say. This says, "Hey guys, this is Jensen from Illinois. I usually listen early in the morning on Podbean when I'm driving between little towns out here. And sometimes I'll just sit parked for a few extra minutes to finish the segment before I head on with the day. There's just something special about listening when it's still quiet and the roads are mostly empty that fits the show perfectly. I really enjoy the variety of topics you cover, but the UFO episodes, hauntings, cryptids, and conspiracy shows are the ones that always pull me in the most. You guys do a great job, giving just enough to get the imagination going without overdoing it, and that's a big part of why I keep coming back. Just wanted to send a note and say I've really been enjoying the show. Keep up the great work. Listening from the back roads, Jensen from Illinois." Jensen, that is a fantastic note. There really is something about those empty back roads in the early morning that fits this show just a little too well. Thanks for listening. Thanks for riding along with us, and thanks for taking the time to write in. And of course, if you want to reach us, email us at shadowpodcast@protonmail.com. Matt, let's get back into the file.
You are tuned to the shadow frequency, where every whisper tells a story from beyond the veil. The darkness continues.
Thanks, Juniper. And Jensen, that image of listening out on those quiet Illinois roads is pretty much perfect for this case. So let's open the second half of the file, because this is where John Titor stops being just an eerie internet presence and starts becoming a real puzzle about authorship, motive, and how a legend protects itself. I'm pulling out another item from the file here. This one isn't from a forum archive. It's a Florida business filing, a real corporate record for the John Titor Foundation, LLC, filed in September 2003, with Lawrence Haber listed as the registered agent. And once that paperwork enters the story, the atmosphere changes. Because now we're no longer just staring at a mysterious stranger on an old message board. We're looking at the possibility that the myth had acquired handlers or representatives, or at the very least people willing to formalize it in the real world. Later coverage and coast-to-coast material tied Haber to the ongoing public face of the Titor story, including appearances involving the alleged mother, Kay Titor. That alone doesn't prove the whole thing was fabricated from the start, but it does make the case feel less like a spontaneous digital haunting and more like something that may have been curated after the fact. And that's important because by then the original posts had already ended. On March 24, 2001, Titor signs off with that wonderfully mundane and eerie fast line, "Bring a gas can with you when the car dies on the side of the road." Then he's gone. No grand finale, no portal, no triumphant reveal. Just roadside advice and silence. That is one reason this story survived. He left the way ghosts leave, abruptly and with just enough personality to feel human. Now here's the one skeptical beat that has to be said plainly. The future he described did not unfold the way he said it would. We did not get the Civil War he pegged to 2004. We did not get the short World War in 2015 that he laid out in those posts. Later reporting also noted misses like his claim that there would be no Olympics after 2004. If you're taking the literal prophet reading, that is a serious problem. But here's why the legend kept breathing anyway. Titor had already built in a defense, world lines, divergence, nearby realities. In the preserved post, he says this was effectively an alternate timeline from ours and that he could never get back to the exact world line he left. That means believers never had to say he was wrong. They could say he was close, but not this close. It is nearly perfect bit of myth engineering. Not because it proves anything, but because it makes the story extremely hard to kill. And that's where the John Titor case becomes bigger than John Titor. Because what are we really looking at here? A real set of preserved posts from 2000 and 2001. A real IBM 5100 at the center of the mission. A real old web audience watching this unfold live. A real later LLC filing in Florida. Real radio coverage that helped keep the legend alive. Those parts are solid. The leap happens in between them. The leap is the thing we cannot bridge with evidence. Was it one very talented hoaxer? A collaborative fiction? Somebody with enough technical knowledge to build a story around an obscure machine and enough discipline to stay in character? Or was it, for a brief moment, exactly what it claimed to be? A message from a man stranded between years, using the nearest message board like a flare gun. What I keep coming back to is timing. This happened at the edge of an era when the internet still felt enchanted. People were anonymous, but that hadn't yet become cheap. Technical language still sounded like wizardry to a lot of people. Y2K had primed the culture to think computers might carry hidden catastrophes inside them, and boards like these rewarded obsessive participation. So when Titor arrived, the culture was ready. Not ready to prove him right, maybe, but ready to keep looking. Ready to archive. Ready to argue. Ready to turn a poster into a phenomenon. Yeah, maybe that's the coldest part of the whole file, because even if John Titor never crossed time, the story did. It moved from forum posts to radio, from radio to books, from books to investigations, from investigations into internet folklore. It outlived the predictions. It outlived the moment that created it. Most hoaxes burn out once the trick is exposed. This one mutated. It adapted. It became less about whether a man from 2036 really logged on, and more about how an online world can manufacture a ghost so convincing people keep trying to catch its reflection years later. That, to me, is the shadow in the case. Not the machine, not the soldier, not even the future war. It's the idea that the internet learned very early how to build a myth with just enough truth in the frame to make the impossible look almost documented. And maybe that's why John Titor still feels like he's out there somewhere, not in time, but in the static.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Whether he was a traveller or a fabulist, he left behind one hell of a trail.
And the deeply unsettling one, because once you realize a message board can become a legend factory, you start looking at every old post a little differently.
John Titor may have not been a real-time traveler, but he may have been one of the first ghosts the internet ever made. Juniper, take us on home.
Tonight, we followed one of the strangest legends the early internet ever produced. A man claiming to be a soldier from 2036, a stop in 2000, an IBM 5100 mission to 1975, and a trail of posts that still hasn't fully lost its chill. Thanks for spending part of your night with us here on the Shadow Frequency. You can always reach us at shadowpodcast@protonmail.com. And don't forget about our website, shadowfrequencypodcast.com. You'll find all of our episodes, show notes, the companion blog, merch, and links to all of the platforms. And, of course, come back next time when we open the file cabinet again and see what strange case is waiting inside. You guys want to say goodnight?
Keep your eyes on the screen and maybe don't trust every message that finds you in the dark.
Good night, everybody. And if someone from 2036 does post, do let us know.
Good night, everyone. Stay curious, stay creepy, and keep listening from the shadows.
This episode was conjured with a solemn vow to explore the unexplained while remaining bound to the truths that have been unearthed. All interpretations are speculative.